I've got to manage myself, I've got to manage my mind. The task is not easy, but to higher heights I climb.
I'm determined to succeed, so no excuses, please. If you don't want success in life, then don't hinder me. Yes, let the whole world know you are a CEO. You are a CEO. I'm a CEO. You are a CEO. I'm a CEO. The time is here to celebrate. You are a CEO. You are a CEO. You are a CEO. You are a CEO. Yes, let the whole world know. The time is here to celebrate. Yes, it's calling, so don't be late. You are a CEO.
Hello, everyone. Terry Fulton here, filling in for Michael Lee Parker for another wonderful episode of CEO TV Live. Tonight, as promised, we are going to talk about Let's Get Organized Part 4. That's right, Part 4. We are not done getting organized. There's a lot of stuff we have to organize, and it just is what it is. So stay with us. We had 3 wonderful shows up to this point, and I have a special treat tonight for you all. My good friend, Miss Lela Smith.
Hi, Terry.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
That
Good
is
to be here.
fantastic. Thank you for bringing your smile with you.
Always.
Not everybody, y'all don't know, I call her Smiles. That's my
does.
nickname
He
for her
does. He
because she's always smiling. I love it. And
I
you're-
like to smile.
Especially when things are organized. So,
Even better.
yeah, even better. So you saw the first series or the first show where Michael Lee Parker and myself talked about being organized and really having the mindset, the mentality
That's good.
to even get your mind ready to get your life organized. You know what I mean? Like I often say, it's kind of graphic, but I often say if I crack your head open and I was able to look at your thoughts, would I be able to find anything? Right? You know, and you look at some of these symptoms, it's because of how I think, right?
good.
And so we talked a little bit about that. Then in part 2, Charlene came on to the show. We
Yeah.
talked about managing your life, not managing time,
good.
but managing your life, managing yourself within time's constraints.
Yeah.
And then Samaya was able to come on and we talked about organizing your time or your life around the relationships that
That's
you have.
cool.
Her being a mother and a wife and a professional. So now here we are about to talk about environment.
Yes.
So kind of with all of that leading up to now, what are some of your thoughts about what we've talked about and how does that connect to organizing your environment?
It's huge. It is very big. So you started talking about the mind. Did you know your space, you said if I crack your head open, we don't have to go that graphic. You know why? Your space can reflect what you're thinking. So
good.
if I'm cluttered in my mind, my space is more than likely gonna be cluttered.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a reflection. My car, right? If I'm always rushing to get somewhere and I'm just kind of always on the go and all, my car is probably gonna reflect that
sure.
versus cleaned out,
Right,
nothing, you know what I
right.
mean? So your space really does reflect your mindset. It reflects everything about you.
Wow. So is it the same thing kind of even with time, right? If my time is not, or if I'm not managing myself within time's
Exactly.
constraints correctly, I'm probably not managing myself within my environment.
And your space will definitely reflect that. I mean, we're in a world where everything is a chore, right?
Right.
Your space is a chore if you allow it to be. So if you're not managing your life and the people around you,
Yeah.
right, are not managing, or it's not a cohesive environment,
Right.
it's probably going to feel a little disjointed
right,
in
right.
the environment.
Interesting. So let's start getting to some of the nitty gritty into
All right,
what we're
let's
going to
go.
talk about. You know, and we had a show last year, if you remember, when Michael Lee Parker brought us on.
Absolutely.
He talked to me about time, and he was talking to you about space, and you talked a little bit about safety and this whole thing about
love
safety.
it.
And it's my understanding you brought some home footage.
I did.
Some home footage. So
This
you
is
took
gonna
us into
be-
your house.
I really did. Now, you're going to see the footage, and it's a real project. And I wanted to share it because even though I embrace organization,
Sure.
I love it, there's always room for improvement.
Absolutely.
And so I wanted to be transparent. I had a project that you're going to
Nice.
see.
Nice.
And it's a real project that I had to do. I needed to do. I was just putting it off
Nice.
for whatever reason. And I
Nice.
decided to share it.
Great, good setup. Well, without further ado, let's watch the video. We'll come back and we will talk about it a little bit.
Let's
So-
go. All right, so let's do a safety project. I'm gonna go through an actual project in my own kitchen, and I'm gonna do the example of this drawer that is in desperate need of safety, as you can see. And we're gonna walk through all the steps of safety for this drawer. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do is the S, and S stands to separate what is not needed. So as you can see here on my countertop, I've created 3 signs. I literally wrote these with a marker on a piece of paper: keep, remove, and maybe, in case I don't know what to do. Now, I'm going to take everything out of this drawer and simply put it in one of these 3 piles. Now, the way you can do this, you know, there's other techniques. Some people say whatever sparks joy as you touch the item, you know, whatever method works for you. Basically, if I've used it, it's gonna stay in the keep. If I haven't used it, I'm going to remove it. Remove it doesn't mean I'm gonna throw it away. It simply just means I'm not gonna put it back in this drawer. It may go in another drawer, or it may get thrown away, or it may go somewhere else in the house. So I'm going to do this. All right, so as you can see, I've created a keep pile, a remove pile, and a maybe pile because I wasn't sure what to do with these items. After looking at these more closely, this is a meat injector, and I checked with my husband. He does want to keep it, so I'm going to move that to the keep pile. These are manuals for different utensils that I have in the kitchen. I'm going to actually go ahead and remove these because in the day of the internet, if I ever need information about a utensil, I can just Google it. So I'm going to go ahead and remove those. All right, next we're going to move on to the A step. So the A stands for arrange everything in order. So what I'm going to do is take everything that I decided to keep, and this is what's going to end up in my drawer. Now, before I put things back in this drawer, I am going to deep clean this and make sure everything is set up. And I also have some organizers and things that I'm going to use to make sure everything gets a permanent home. So here you can see I've done the A step, and A again is arrange everything in order. So that means you have to give everything a permanent home, thinking about ergonomics, design, everything. How often do I use some things? So what I've done is I've chosen to, first of all, I found these handy little compartments for $3. That's right, $3 each at a local store. And so $3 per pack actually. So this total drawer was $6 for these little containers. And they fit perfectly in my drawer, so I'm happy about that. I put everything that I grabbed first more so to the left side of or the right side of the drawer, just because when I open it, it's closer. Things we don't use as often, I put towards the further part of the drawer. Things that I want easily accessible are in the front of the drawer. And so that's the A step. Now when you go to F, that's talking about finish with inspection. So as I'm putting all of these items in the drawer, and I'm just about done, here's the last few items. What I'm gonna do is make sure and wipe down all of these items. So I'm finishing, I'm cleaning everything that goes back into the drawer, inspecting, making sure nothing's broken, making sure everything is in order. So that's the F step, is finish with inspection. All right, so the next step is E, and that means everyone should understand the rules. Now there's a lot of ways you can do this. I'm choosing to use labels. So I'm going to label each of these compartments in this drawer. So anybody that opens this drawer has a general idea of what should go in each of these compartments. So great idea to have always a label maker. I've already made my first label for this whisk that should always go here. And it's just that simple. Label it. Now, every time there's no whisk, you know where to put the whisk back. So I'm gonna finish labeling this and we'll move on to the last step of safety. So as you can see, I have finished labeling everything. So for the E step, it's up to you how you want to do it if you want to use labels. Now I know you can't see all the labels. That's because some of them you won't see unless the item is picked up and not there. So some of them I can label if there's just one compartment. It's obviously the only place that I want this to go. If there's more than one item in a compartment, then I like to make sure people know where things actually go. All right, so that wraps up the E step. The last step is T, which means test consistently to make sure everything is working. So test constantly. So that just has to do with making sure this stays like it is. So periodically there should be some schedule or time period that I actually come back to this drawer and make sure that everything is where I said I wanted it to be. And if something's not working for me, I can rearrange it and make sure that it works for everyone in the household. So that is safety.
Welcome back, and so thank you for bringing us into your home.
Thank you.
And sharing a real life project that is tangible, that everybody has that drawer. Everybody does. Everybody has the drawer. Now, some of us have drawers.
True.
Nevertheless, so take us through the process a little bit.
Sure.
And take us, not just that, but connect the feeling of organizing it to that whole process.
Perfect. So I have a ton of spaces where if I'm at a store and if I see a special, so for example, this was a real project. I said it was real. I needed to do it. Now, I had already purchased the organizer units and things like that. I found them at a bonus. It really was $3 a pack. I was like, oh, I knew I had not done that drawer yet and I needed to do it. I was like, I'm gonna do that drawer. I gotta get to it. So that was the feeling there. And then as I was going through it, I just wanted to make sure it was functional. I wanted to make sure everything made sense. You could see I'm not the only person in my house, obviously, right? So I had to bring in others on the decision. My husband, what does he want to keep? What does he, considering all of that. Someone may not want labels. I have not labeled everything in my house, top to bottom, because I don't have to. Some spaces I do, some spaces I don't. So it just depends.
Nice. So how did you feel when you got it done?
Oh, I love it. I love it. It's like, I really would, if I had the time, everything would be just like that. Every single nook and cranny would be just like that. It's not. It's probably almost there, probably more than the average person, because that's what I like to do. But even I feel like, man, there's always something that can just be a little more organized.
Right. So you probably walk by and open a drawer every now and again just to look in. But anyway, that would be something that I would do. Like, sweetheart, come look at this drawer. That's what I would do. But so let's talk about the system of safety a little bit that you talked about. So what's the philosophical backdrop to safety? And why is it such an effective system? And can you tie it to how long that project actually took you? Because sometimes people think organization has to be cumbersome and it takes a long time, and it doesn't have to be like that.
It really doesn't. And my philosophy, you can do something in 15 minutes or less. You can break it down. And that's why I specifically chose to show you a drawer, because it's something that's small. Why do the whole kitchen at one time? Because that could be quite overwhelming. But safety overall, it's just an acronym. It's a term that was coined by Michael E. Parker through value-centered solutions, and he created this value-centered management philosophy, and it's an acronym to remember the steps that you go through. And I really like those steps because you can't get away from getting everything out of the space. That's the first thing. Is I've seen people try to say, I'm just gonna, do a little bit here and there, and I'm just going to take out what's not needed. You really need to commit. And there's a psychological commitment when you empty that drawer.
That's good.
that I need to finish this project. Otherwise, my house would be in disarray, right?
Yes, yes.
And it didn't take long. It literally, in the course of me recording that video, it took me about 15 minutes, maybe a little bit more to do the labels and things like that,
Right.
but it didn't take long at all.
Right.
So it was very manageable.
So if you attack your home that way, or your workspace, or your car, one space at a time, over time, you have
Absolutely.
a series of organized spaces.
Right, and it becomes habit, right? We talk about habit with you are a
Yes.
CEO. It becomes habit to where I may not get over the mountain all at once,
Right.
but I'm taking little steps
Right.
to get there. And I may not do my whole car. I may just tackle the trunk or a portion of the trunk,
Right.
you know?
Right.
If it, you know, but little bit at a time. And then you're gonna get used to seeing more organized spaces, so it'll stand out to you more
Right.
when something is not
Right.
in that way, which is why I chose that project.
Yeah, and that's what I love about safety too, is because it's a system, it's a method.
Absolutely.
Right, so it's not just like I got organized once. It's not spring cleaning.
It's not a project.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
ongoing. There's maintenance all the time. There's times where I've organized something, labeled it beautifully, oh gosh, and it does not stay that way. I'll just say it.
Yeah.
It just doesn't stay that way. But that's the T in safety. So in safety, you talk about test constantly to
Right.
ensure the system's working. That doesn't mean just go back and put it back. That means, why didn't it work? Was it easy for me or whoever else to put
Right.
it back?
Right.
Can I adjust something to make it easier to maintain
Right.
what I'm trying to get this to look
Sure.
like?
Perfect. And that goes right along, just real quickly before we get into the next segment. That's why it goes really along with managing yourself, even because you have to have the discipline
Absolutely.
to maintain
Yes.
an organized environment. It
Really
doesn't
do.
just stay organized by itself.
It doesn't.
Right? You know, the drawer that you was talking about didn't get junky by itself, and it
Exactly.
didn't organize itself. So it's
Exactly.
really a reflection, like you said earlier. That's good. So let's talk about some of the fun stuff. I know
Yes.
you're about to come alive. This is about to get serious. So now we're going to move from safety as a system to be able to organize different spaces to creating an environment.
I love it.
Yes.
Yes.
And you brought some more footage from home.
I did.
You brought us back into your home. So set us up and we'll go into the video.
Sure. So this is a real project again in my home. Of course, a lot of us during the pandemic, we have to work from home. So if you don't live by yourself or you do live by yourself, you'd have to make it comfortable. And so that's what I was faced with. I needed a comfortable space to be able to work at. And my home, we have like a home office, but my husband works from home too. And so I needed a space to be able to actually put my computer, work, and somewhere where it had some scenery that I liked.
Sure,
as well.
awesome. So this is another real project, so it's tangible for all of the
Yes.
viewers. So we're gonna go ahead and watch this video and we'll be right back to talk about it.
Let's talk about design, room design. So this is going to be a quick project, just as a quick example. So the first thing when you look at a space, as you can see here, I'm in a real space that is a blank canvas. And with the pandemic, I needed to turn this into a working space. And so what I decided to do was use this as a project. And so what we're gonna do is talk through the steps that I'm going through. So the first thing is to define the use of the space. You wanna know, what is the space supposed to be used for? In this case, it's obviously got a big TV. So typically this would have been a entertaining space, but I'm gonna turn it into my working space due to the pandemic. So that's the first step, define how you want to use the space. The next thing is to think about a focal point. So you have a lot of walls to deal with, and so you have to think about, where do you want the eye to go to in this space? For me, I'm choosing this wall as my focal point because it's a large blank wall that will make me happy when I look at it. So I'm gonna put stuff on this wall that I like to look at, okay? That's the next step. So after that, you have to think about design elements, color, what inspires you? What do I actually want to put on these walls? So that's where you have to look at balance, right? You have to make sure things are balanced. So obviously I have a large item here. What I'm gonna have to do is balance that on the left and right side to where there's nothing too overwhelming. I have to work within the dimensions of the wall space that I have to fit some items along this wall. Same thing with this wall here. So what I'm gonna have to do is figure out what to put on this wall to fill it up, but I still wanna actually leave some open space where it doesn't feel cluttered. So you have to think about balance. We're gonna look at symmetry. We're gonna do some repetition to make it flow. And we're also gonna just make sure everything is cohesive with colors and things like that. So let's go ahead and get started and look at this design project. All right, so this is the finished product. I'm gonna give you a brief tour of this design and how we came up with it. So this is my workspace. You know, I had to create a workspace, so brought some things from upstairs, you know, just things I had already. This is a very low-cost design, so have a workspace. I can stand up or sit. This wall here was able to create some type of accent. You can see there's balance here. So there's balance, there's symmetry, but there's also interest. The designs aren't exactly the same on all these little fixtures that I found. Very inexpensive find there, which I really love. And it matches kind of the black. I had to work with what I had, so it matched with the black of the TV. This is my favorite. Now, this was my focus, but you could actually paint this wall. There's so much I could do with this wall. I chose to just accent it with shelving, a few more accents, these cool little cork boards that I found for like $15. Love them. Was able to just figure out how I wanted to arrange them. It's a lot of math, it's a lot of measuring, but at the end of the day, you can really create something that is creative, interesting, and at the end of the day, it makes you smile. I brought in a piece of furniture that I love, just a wooden console to bring in a natural element to the room. And then just some interest. So because there's a lot of texture in here, wanted to soften it up with some pillows, things like that. So you can see it all worked out. I love the way it turned out. Hopefully you do too. And this is just an example of what you can do to create a space that's inviting, interesting, at the end of the day, reflects your personality and your style.
So I love how you said it makes you smile.
Yes, it does.
Back to my nickname for you. Back to my y'all don't walk around here calling us smiles. That's my nickname. But I like, because we're talking about organizing your environment. And the reason why we're talking about environment is when you think about it as an environment versus just a space, it really changes what you actually do in that physical space. Explain the process.
It is a very interesting process because you have to think about you. When you think about design, it's very personal, right? So my design style and even that project that you saw, that reflected me, right? Someone else, there's no right or wrong. So someone else in that space could have done something totally different that was just as great.
Right.
Well, I thought it was great. I liked it, but you all might not like it. But
it was great.
Okay, but you know what I mean. But it's no right or wrong. I think that's what I love about design is I love creativity and I love being able to express whatever that is.
Right. And the purpose behind it, as you introduced the video, the main goal is I'm working from home. And you could have easily just threw up your laptop and started working. But it was bigger than that.
It was bigger.
It was to be able to be productive, to have a sense of peace, relaxation, environment, climate, feel to how you approach your work activities is really what that space, you were trying to define that space as.
It's really about peace, like you said. There's about peace and harmony, and we go back to environment. It all goes back to environment. You cannot think, for me, I can't think in a cluttered space. I also can't really think if a space is just blank. Because my mind is gonna drift to, ooh, what could I put on that wall, this or that. But you actually do want a space that triggers you too. When I look at a wall or when I look at a corner or I look at this element in the room, it actually makes me smile, but it may trigger me to be more productive. Or it may trigger me, there's other areas, right, where you wanna relax. You know, I may not want to be triggered to be productive. I actually may want to be triggered to relax and calm down, right?
Sure.
Things like that.
So let's talk about that with the environment too. I think that's important in terms of being organized. So you're working from home, you know, let's just say you're bringing your laptop to bed,
No.
right? Let's not say that. No, let's just say you're bringing your laptop to bed, but to your point earlier is you're bringing that trigger
Exactly.
into an environment. Now your brain, your whole mind, your chemicals, all of the different things that are going on inside your body is no longer associating the room with sleep and rest.
Exactly. And we're so triggered. Think about our environment today. We have so many devices, so much electronics. It's easy to lose sleep.
Right.
I mean, it really actually is more work to try to get regular sleep consistently in a comfortable way versus we're triggered. You could have your cell phone right here plugged up. You can have a laptop, right? You can have a TV on the wall in the bedroom. And it's so many triggers and we don't even understand why am I not sleeping at that point. I like to say my room is my spa. You know, if you think of a spa, have you ever been to a spa? You don't really see a junkie spa. I've never been to a junkie spa. I don't just leave things on the floor, right? You know, a spa is a relaxing environment. Everything is in its place. There's slow music, right? There's little things that happen to where it calms your mind down, right? So if I were to add in cell phones, TVs, devices, all of that, it's kind of it's moves the point.
Your spa.
Right? It's messing up my spa.
So let's fellowship this just a little bit longer because I think this is really good and it's very practical, especially during COVID, right? So you have students doing school from home. You have parents working from home. You might have, 4 or 5 people in the household that you have to organize around. But there's little triggers and little nuggets that you're dropping as you're talking. So you can have a theme for a room. Like you said, this is my spa room. So you can start with the theme. Or when you were talking about your Safe Tea project, it was on your mind. You didn't really talk about that, but there's a little nugget. It was on your mind. You had that drawer in mind. And so when you saw something that fit perfectly, so you were already establishing some sort of plan on what you wanted to accomplish and organize in your house, right? Or like the same thing with, I'm working from home, I need a space. So you were thinking about it before. So how does someone, household as a whole or a person, start to think more systematic and plan to organize different environments within the home?
Okay, that's good.
That's a loaded question, but it's a good one.
It's a loaded question. I would say the first thing to do, you have to declutter. You can't move straight into a design project.
That's good.
So you have to, and that could be decluttering your mind.
That's good.
You have to declutter the space. So you have to go through the safety part of it first. I wouldn't have been able to do a design project if there was a bunch of things in that room that I needed to clear out. So you have to do that. Another thing you have to do is you do have to go through a deep cleaning because that's another area. You don't want to design a dirty space, right? Naturally, you have to clean everything, and that kind of gives you your blank canvas.
That's good.
Once you have your blank canvas, you really have to decide, how do I want to break up this space? What do I want to happen in this space? If it's going to be for my child to study, then what does that look like? What do they need? How do I trigger them to be able to have a productive study environment? Whatever that space is going to be used for, think about that and think about that person's personality and what makes them happy. It could be the colors you choose. What's your child's favorite color, right? It could be some items. Maybe they like robots or maybe they like this or that. I don't know. But think about things that will trigger them to be creative but also productive. And then you design around that with them in mind and with them. You might even shop with them. Say, hey, what about this? Do you like this?
Samaya said they made it kind of like a group project. Right? Her and Matt got together, they talked about it, then they brought the boys in and said, what do you all think? So that's good because design still is personal, even to maybe a young person or a kid. So that's great. One last thing I want to ask you before we go, because I can continue, I'm getting all kind of goodies and nuggets from you, is design and creating an environment doesn't have to be expensive.
No.
A budget helps.
It does. It definitely
I'm not going to
helps.
act like a budget doesn't help. And I'm kind of, highlighting that there's another show coming up maybe in about a week or so
Okay.
where we're going to be talking about organizing money or something like that. But design doesn't have to be expensive. It can just take some creativity.
Yeah.
You said you repurposed some
I actually
furniture and
did.
things like that. So what are some real quick tips that people can use? One or two things that
Perfect.
people can do?
Perfect. The first thing I would say is repurpose. Find something that you already have to move to a different space, or find inexpensive things that you can do as a craft project. If budget is a constraint for you, there is no reason why you can't do your design. You may have to do it in phases even if you absolutely want a certain thing. There was a piece I showed in my project. Well, it was not a cheap piece, but I chose to focus my budget around that particular piece, and that gave me less money to use on the rest of the project, but I still was able to accomplish the overall design by using my budget wisely for that project.
That's great.
So that's one thing I would say. The other thing I would say is if you do have a larger budget, it definitely helps because really, and it helps if you can get assistance with the design, right? It helps by being able to get more pieces that are readily available and there where you may not have to do a lot of craft projects and things like that. So, I mean, budget helps, but it's not the only thing that matters.
Sure. So if you have a little bit of money, it's just if you value creating the nice environment, it's money well spent.
It's
right?
money well spent.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lela.
Thank you for having me. I
coming,
love
and
talking about this
Thank you for bringing
stuff.
your smile and bringing your creativity and
love
bringing
it.
all the strategies. Hopefully everybody got a lot out of it. So I enjoyed tonight's show. I'm gonna go get some spaces organized. For me, it's you're gonna see some globes and some books, and you're gonna see things like that. So, but anyway, I really enjoyed tonight's show. It was the 4th of 5. We have another show coming up, and I want to introduce the next show, which is going to be Let's Get Organized Part 5, where I'm going to have some very special guests. None other than Mr. Darrell Brown, as well as Charmaine Thompson, and we're going to be talking about how to organize your money. And so this has been a wonderful series. I want to thank Lela for coming on to the show. And between now and next week, go on out there and let the whole world know that you are a CEO. Good night, everyone.
Yes, let the whole world know. A CEO.
Thank you.